Hi, everybody. We are back tonight with the Suspense Squad, and we have another amazing author with us. She is a Publishers Weekly best-selling author, Christy Barritt. We are here to talk tonight about her book, Axel. So, Christy, if you can hold it up for us.
Axel.
Oh, very nice. Will you read us the back cover copy?
All right, the back cover. Women are missing. Private security firm Blackout must find them before another victim disappears. Axel Hendricks likes to live on the edge. That's why being a Navy SEAL suited him so well. But after his last mission, he cut his losses and joined Blackout instead. His team's latest case involves an undercover investigation on Lantern Beach. Olivia Rowlands came to the island to escape her problems and danger. When trouble from her past shows up in town, she impulsively blurts that she's engaged to Axel, the womanizing man she has seen while waitressing. Now, she may not be the only one in danger. So could Axel. Axel knows Olivia might be his chance to find answers, and that acting like her fiance is the perfect cover for his latest assignment. But he doesn't like throwing Olivia into the middle of such a dangerous situation, nor is he comfortable with the feelings she stirs inside him. With Olivia's life, as well as both of their hearts on the line, Axel must uncover the truth and stop an evil plan before more lives are destroyed.
I like that. Sounds good. Sammy, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. All right, Christy, good to see you again, by the way. So you do traditional publish and indie publishing. What would you consider the biggest differences for you, and what are your favorite parts about each one?
Okay, so the biggest differences between them, I think for like traditional publishing, a lot of it is, your editors are calling the shots. They're figuring out the covers and they're figuring out release dates for your books. And on the positive side of that also is that they are also doing a lot of the marketing and the distribution, and they're helping you out on that end. And with indie publishing, you're setting your own deadlines, you're picking your own covers, you get to write what you want to write, and you get to leave the story as you see it best fits for you. And on the flip side of that, you're also in charge of all of the marketing and getting the word out. So it's like if anything goes wrong, it clearly goes back to you because you are the one in charge of that whole process. So I guess like those are like the differences between it. Like, with traditional, it's, you're writing for somebody, you're following their guidelines, you're trusting that they know what they're doing to get your book out to the audience. And like with Love Inspired, for example, like they know their audience so well. They know exactly what their readers want, and they know how to tell you to get to that point of giving the readers what they want. But then with indie, it's just fun. You have to I think to be successful or more successful, you really have to have like an entrepreneur. I can never say that word. You have to kind of be an entrepreneur, and you have to be like a self-starter, and you have to be able to stick to your schedules and to get up every day and write, not having like a really hard deadline, where you're going to have to send back money if you don't meet your deadline. You might have to send back your advance in traditional publishing. So you don't have that kind of pressing on you when it comes to indie publishing, but it's very rewarding also to get to do what you want to do and to set those deadlines and write the stories that you want to write.
Your covers on your books look so good.
Yes, you're very good at covers.
You're excellent.
Thank you. Covers are kind of like Christmas morning to me. Like I love covers. I just had like 8 more design for books. I don't know when I'll get to them, but I get the covers and I'm like a kid at Christmas. I get so excited. I have to show all my friends.
Do you use an editor? Do you have a personal editor that you use often when you do your own books?
So I have like my whole process kind of in place by now. Yeah, but I have like a whole team of beta readers. I have 2 assistants. I have an editor that I use, and I have 2 proofreaders that I use. And so since I pretty much publish every month, I pretty much just have my little system in place that I move through. So I definitely could not publish every month if I didn't have that system in place.
Wow. That's a lot.
It is
every month is a lot.
It is. I don't want to jump ahead with your questions because you might ask about it, but I dictate my books and that really helps. But we can come back to that if that's a later question.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so let's go with our next question.
I was going to ask about her process, so maybe now is a good time
I think that's a
to
great time to bring it up.
ask about it. Specifically your writing process. I mean, you put out a lot of books, like you said, a book a month. What's your writing process for coming up with the ideas? Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? I don't see how you can be a pantser.
I am a pantser to an extent, but I've grown, like, I'm not a pantser I'm not a pantser like I used to be a pantser. Like I used to totally be like, I'm just going to start with this idea and run with it. Actually, I'll get back to that in a second. But so part of my process that I just keep refining it like over the years and everything. So what really works for me right now is to dictate my books. And it kind of took a while for me to get used to it because if you've ever tried dictating, it's like, she said, comma, quote, I will go with you, period, quote, new paragraph. Like, you have to learn how to like kind of talk in that language. But once you get used to it, it's really like, it's awesome. And it really, dictating works for me because I have 2 kids that, I run around with all the time. So if I take my son to soccer practice, then I can sit in my car and I can just have I do it on my phone. I have a dictation app. Wow. And I just dictate. And so basically, my process, which has gotten refined through that, is that I have a basic idea for my story, and I'll sketch out my first few chapters. And I find when you're dictating, I have to write out what I'm going to dictate. So when I'm dictating, it doesn't just work for me just to sit there and try to think of what I want to do next. I have to kind of have a plan for it. So I'll sketch out what I want to dictate, and then I'll dictate that. And then I'll sketch out what I want to dictate after that. So what happens after that? So I kind of am plotting. I'm just plotting like in sections. And so I don't really know, like, there comes a point, like probably like 1/3 of the way through the book where I kind of have to stop and I have to make sure, because I'm writing mystery and suspense, I have to make sure I have some suspects and some clues, so I have to reevaluate what I've already written. So in an average day, I'll dictate between like probably 8,000 and 10,000 words. So that's part of what makes me able to do what I do, is that I'm able to dictate a lot. The other part of the process that really helps me is that I have an assistant that I'll send that dictation to, and she'll clean it up for me. And that really saves me a lot of time. And it takes away one of those steps of having my eyes on the story too many times for things that aren't super important, because I don't want to spend all of my time and energy on the story making sure I've used the right word or the commas got where I dictated them, like just different things like that. And so she'll clean all that up for me. So the first, it probably takes me like 7 days to dictate my first draft. And so every day my process is the same. I dictate in the morning, I send it to her, I have it back by the next morning. And then I just repeat that process until the rough draft of my book is done, basically. And now my rough draft isn't complete. Like, it's not like I dictate 55,000 words and my book's perfect. I'll probably will end up dictating like between 35 and 40,000 words. So it's kind of like a skeletal version of my story. And so then I go back in with my revisions and I really add like a lot of my sensory details, or if I have a subplot, or if I just have to bulk it up. I just have to really make that story come alive. So like the bones of it are in place. But I really just have to go back and just make it like good and readable, and just put all those little fun things in there for the story. And yeah, like I said too, like I said, like maybe at 1/3 of the story, I'll go back and I'll reevaluate. But then again, like once I get like to like the 60% mark of my story too, I will go back through and I'll actually write out the outline and I'll sketch everything out and just make sure everything's in place. There's nothing that's like not fitting. And a different part of that too is just like trusting your gut when you're doing it, and making sure like, my gut will tell me like if I'm writing this story and something doesn't feel right, or I'm not excited about these next scenes that I'm writing, then maybe something's wrong with my story. And so I'll go back through and I'll have to just try to pinpoint what it is, like where I went off track and what needs to be fixed. So I'm excited about doing the next day, of dictating the story the next day, basically.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's go with our next question.
Well, I can go. I was going to ask, like, what actually inspired you to write this book and this series that you're writing? Mm-hmm. So, I'm going to roll that into just a little bit too, is that you're talking about like how quickly you can write a rough draft. Can you tell me a little bit about like what kind of research and things that you have to do for books?
Sure. Well, I guess to answer that second question first, I think part of the nice part about writing in series is that some of that research I don't want to say doesn't have to be done, but it's already been done. Mm-hmm. So like, for example, like my Lantern Beach series, I've already established this island. I've established the characters there. So a lot of it is just diving right back into that world where I pretty much, I know so much of what's going on, I mean, so there is some research that I have to do. Some of it's big, like if the whole story hinges on that research, then clearly I'm going to do the research first. But if it's like just little research that I'll need to plug in like a paragraph or two here or there, I usually just like make a notation in my dictation, and then I'll just go back through and I'll try to plug it in there. So it just kind of varies depending, but I don't mind researching. I think it's fun and interesting. And I'm always like taking notes on things that people are saying. Like I had one of my friends came to Bible study last week, and she's like, one of my favorite snacks is eating carrots and dipping them in mustard. I was like, what? So I was like, okay, I'm totally using that. Anything you say here within reason. Anyway, but like, so that would be like, that's obviously not research, but like I'm always just taking notes on like little things that I find interesting. And my husband jokes me because I have like, I don't know, like 50 tabs open on my Safari on my phone. Because as soon as I find some interesting research, I just leave it open on my phone so I can get back to it. That's my organization. So anyway, but I do have to squeeze some research into it, but it's easier when you have a series versus like if you're starting a standalone, that's a whole new world, whole new characters, all those different things.
All right. I think we have one more question is Darlene. Darlene, are you our last question? Okay.
Well, it's very nice meeting you, Christy.
Nice to meet you too.
So we all know that most writers are also readers. Right. Do you have time to read?
It's funny. I don't read as much as I used to. Like when I was younger, I loved reading, like, Nancy Drew, Sweet Valley High, the Mandy books. I mean, like I loved reading, even like, gosh, I mean, all the way up until like when my kids were like little, like I loved reading, but like clearly like writing is obviously taking up a lot of my time. But I do love like audiobooks. And so like when I try to walk around the neighborhood every day, so I try to listen to audiobooks. But then unfortunately, a lot of my story, like, 'cause I need to be connected with stories. I love stories. And so, but unfortunately at this phase of my life, a lot of those stories come into play like on TV rather than in books right now. But I do love reading.
So who's your favorite author and why?
Well, I've had a lot. Like I moved from like my Nancy Drew phase to like, I love Dee Henderson and Terry Blackstock, so like when I was in like my late teens, early 20s, I think is when that's when that was coming out. And so I loved all of those books. And then like in recent years, I really started reading a lot of like Mary Higgins Clark. And I actually love an author. He's not a Christian author. His name is Harlan Coben. I don't know if you guys have read him before, but he has a great style. He writes mystery and suspense also. And his books always surprise me. So that's what I like, in a book. Cause I'm always like looking for like these little like cues in books, like, oh, I know it's going to happen. I'm a writer. I know what's happening, but he always surprises me. So, and there are my dogs again, barking. I love it. Oh, and I had a funny story. I actually forgot to tell you. I think you guys asked me like about the inspiration for this book too.
Yes.
I don't think I answered that.
Tell us about Axel.
Well, but Axel, this isn't my normal way that I have like inspiration for my books, but it's an interesting way maybe. I have a group there's 5 of us writers that get together every year, and we call ourselves the Coast to Coast Plotting Society. And so like 3 of the authors are with Bethany House, and one has done indie stuff, but she's written for Zondervan too and some other things in the past. So, and basically we get together and we each have like 2 90-minute sessions where we can brainstorm anything we want. And so last year we ended up getting together, and I had the covers for these books done already. And I had already like plotted my other stuff that I had wanted to work out during my session. So I showed my writing friends the covers for all the books in the Blackout series. And all I had was the pictures and the names. And then I just let them go and like, okay, Tell me who you think he's going to be. Tell me who you think he could fall in love with, like what kind of woman. And then, we talked about like different situations that could happen in every book. And that was fun, but just kind of like going off of the pictures and brainstorming like who this person would be. I had never actually done that before. And so it was a lot of fun to be able to. We just had a great time trying to develop these characters based on their pictures and names. And that's how I did all 4 books in this Blackout series.